Have fun.
Yep.
He's talking to some residents.
Okay.
Okay, we are back. We will go on to item, back for one meeting, 2.3, discussion pertaining to pioneering agreements.
Oh.
He's in with
no.
residents. We're okay. We got a form.
These also.
Oh, now we're waiting for tech.
I think the room shuts off at 11. Doesn't it?
Should have. All my eyelids go over there.
The air conditioner.
Y'all making fun of my big
At
cookie.
11.
It's helping
Just
right
so
now.
we
With the
know.
cycle.
I went in and cut off a piece of like 3 different cookies and then brought them out and
Oh, I
I
am too.
Alright.
for a nap.
Okay, here we go. Focus.
So we had a request from a developer to talk about pioneering agreements, so I wanna go an overview over pioneering agreements, what they are, what they do, but I wanna do it in the form of an example, so it's easier to follow. So let's say Lauren bought mountain property in 2022 with immediate plans to build his dream home. There he is.
Look at you.
Real happy.
You're so fancy.
Wow, I'm immortalized in it.
To build the cabin code requires an improved road. So he needs something additional to the road.
Engineering.
Lauren bit the bullet and built the 1,600 linear foot road, which cost him $32K, which is $200 a linear foot.
320K.
Oh, $320K, thank you. So after the road was built, Sherry decides that she wants to build her dream cabin.
Nice.
Little boat tucks there.
Connecting to the road will save Sherry about $200,000 since she only needs to build 600 linear feet of road. Is this fair? And what could be done to split the cost of the shared portion of the road? So Lauren builds this road, spends a ton of money doing it. Sherry comes in after, oh, this is great, I only have to build 600 feet.
I feel like I'm back in 5th grade with a word problem.
I think it's fine if I'm
So
Sherry.
pioneering agreements allow a developer to share the infrastructure cost if someone later benefits from those improvements. So in the prior example, a pioneering agreement would require Sherry to reimburse Lauren 50% of the shared portion of the cost. So in other words, she would need to pay Lauren $100,000 for tying into the road that she also benefits from.
I thought we had done some of these, cause I swear when they'd done the gas line down my road, we did one.
Potentially, public road?
The gas,
County road
the
though,
gas
or-
company may have, was taken with them, or?
No, cause it was with the developers that were doing that. Cause they approached me about it, and they're like, I don't care about your gas, I don't have it. But anyway.
So how are these used? So because the road is public property, developer cannot force a future developer to reimburse them. Thus, the city and the original developer sign a pioneering agreement which requires a future developer to reimburse the original developer.
Yeah.
The city would typically collect the money from the future developer when they submit plans to the city. The city would then send the original developer a reimbursement check. So, issues with pioneering agreements. Assumed costs of purchasing land, determining infrastructure costs, disputes, and additional developers. So going back to our property, when Lauren bought the property, he knew it didn't have this road, and so he knew the infrastructure costs were gonna cost a lot of money. So he negotiated a sweet price and bought it for $25,000. While the total cost of the road was $200 a linear foot, the last 400 feet was approximately $500 a linear foot because it needed retaining walls. So instead of building, Sherry decides to sell the property, and it's much more marketable because this road's a lot closer to her property. Jared purchased the property for $500,000 with plans to build his dream cabin. And when trying to submit building plans, Jared is informed of the pioneering agreement. One, disputes that he should have to pay Lauren anything, and then also disputes the amount in the reimbursement agreement.
This is amazing. We never get presentations like this.
I did this all on my own too.
We can do it.
My IT skills are amazing.
The attorney went to drafting school or.
So What do we do with Petty, who ties into the road 8 years later, right there?
I came south though, I'm south.
So you can kind of see that pioneering agreements in the abstract make sense. But there's,
He's up next.
in every pioneering agreement that I've been a part of, as far as on the back end, because they've been approved before, there's been a dispute. The dispute is typically money, and they're essentially a lot like protection strips. They can hold up future development because of something that a previous developer in the city agreed to.
I also see this potential for cascading agreements, right? Because if, Jared has property and then somebody builds on the other side of him, how does Jared get reimbursed for the cost of the piece of the road that he built, right? I mean, there's like, every new person down the road has a new pioneering agreement.
Right, or the city may forget to or miss collecting it.
That's
that
where
would
the
never
challenge comes in, cause these go for a long time, 10 years,
Right.
9 years later, nobody's here, nobody remembers it's there, and then they find out later, you didn't collect it.
Now that developer wants the city to just pay him.
So if we do not have a policy on pioneering agreements, so that's why we brought it forward to you, to see if this is something that you would like the city to entertain, we can create a policy. And if you do, then you can consider these things, that the developer pay administrative fee for the pioneering agreement, because these take staff time. We take time drafting it, we take time implementing it. There's engineering estimates, which I would propose that the developer pay us to then get a third-party engineering consulting firm to do it. In my experience, when the estimates come from the developer, they're reviewed by staff, but that's where big disputes can happen.
I have a question, sorry.
Yeah.
Go back to your pretty drawing with your little roads. Well, okay, so who was the first one? The mayor, he built that road?
Yep.
Is that public road?
Yep.
Why?
This instance, it was for this example, right?
So pioneering agreements go to reimbursed public infrastructure. So they're gonna be roads, and typically in subdivision, they'll tie into other future
Right,
subdivisions.
right, but.
But if it's a private road, nobody could use it
Right.
without their permission anyway,
Right, for
right?
sure,
You know?
but I'm just like that, so much of that is just, if it's, you probably wouldn't have put in a big old public road right there if it's just going up to your cabin anyway, it would've been a private road anyway.
Right, and so this example,
blowing holes in
typically,
his
this was
analysis
just to
here.
kind of
Come
show you
on.
how pioneering agreements work.
Got it.
These happen for subdivisions.
Often when you see them, they've built the road, they're developing this side, and this side isn't developed, and this guy is just waiting over here.
For
As soon as
that
road
road
For
develops,
the road build.
That's what
Same with
happened.
power lines, same with,
That's what happened
yeah.
on ours, but I think that they went to each property owner and asked them if they would sign on to an agreement to reimburse them, I think that's
So
what it
maybe
was,
they
it
just did
wasn't,
their own
They
pioneering.
might
Yeah,
have done their own thing,
yeah.
and recorded it.
So another thing that you would consider having detailed dispute clause, especially as it relates to third parties, which that's where the disputes come from. And then potentially charge a percentage on the amount collected, because it does take staff time and effort to enforce a pioneering agreement.
I think you did a great job of teaching us.
My
about
recommendation
these.
is that, just like protection strips, which we do not allow, is that they're assumed in the cost of when you bought the land.
Yeah.
Like when Lauren bought his fictitious mountain property, he should have known that there's no guarantee that anyone would reimburse him in the future. Really, pioneering agreements, as you saw my staff report, some of the times they're gonna be fair. Because maybe there's unknown things that happened, or the adjacent property, which would be a future developer, agreed to it but then backed out, something like that.
Right.
But it really, pioneering agreements only benefit the original developer. So,
Do we have any of these proposed sites in the city? I mean, I can see some land, especially inter-family land, right, that gets subdivided to families, and then this would be nonsense.
yeah, and if something like that were to happen, then you would hope that if there was any development, that when they subdivided and split off, that they would have negotiated at that time. That pioneering agreements, we're kind of inserted into a future dispute, which I'd like to stay out of, and
That's like job security for you.
Yeah.
Too late.
Police,
I don't think
keep
we
me
should
pretty
do that.
busy, so we're good.
That's what I think, right?
I think we should just stick to it.
So we just need direction as staff, is signing agreement something you're willing to entertain? And if so, what are the parameters? Or if they're not, then we can let the developers know when they call and ask that the city council does not, entertain signing agreements.
Your recommendation is no, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I'm there.
that's right.
Yeah. Only thing I worry about, what about if this? I guess we wouldn't, never mind.
Public roads.
Yeah, we've been plugged in process, we did. Never mind. Yeah, I say don't do it.
Nathan, you okay with that too? You agree
Yeah,
with
well,
that?
my experience with them is they're a nightmare. It's usually you find out about them after the fact, they're late, you haven't clicked the money, it's a big fight.
We're just doing an SOP on that, is that just, we're not allowing, just minor homes.
And one example is
Let it be
Farmington, when they were building the new high school, all the properties leading up to the school had signed a pioneer, there was a pioneering agreement on them.
Yeah.
So the city had to come in and build sidewalk and somehow they had to get the money, or someone, the school district had to do it. Can't remember all the story, but it was in the news, so it's got a potential to put city council or the city in the news for
Just the
taking funds.
It's a beautiful school,
If it's tied to.
No,
something.
so let it be written, so let it be done.
Done, checked.
Okay.
That was a great presentation. I'm glad we waited for this.
That was worth it.
I'm
telling you, that's-
We do all of our
Yeah, stick
PowerPoints.
on my
Did you
cake.
know, did you notice like the little boxes move in the PowerPoints though?
I did
Jared,
that too. I forgot they
Brian,
were.
Sherry, like.
Articulate face.
You get a staff, can I just say real fast, staff, I know you're all trying to leave.
Pretty good.
Like, truly thank you for, I know this was a late night, as we got through there, I appreciate there's been hours and hours spent on
It
Bob's
was a heavy
stuff.
lift, yeah.
I wanted to get it done tonight, just truly wanted it, cause I know we've got other projects to move on into in the city as well, so thank you for being willing to stick it out tonight, I just wanted to get this done, so,
And willing to try and
thank you, yes.
understand anything what we said in the next 3 days.
But really, truly, thank you, cause I know it's been a late night, chief.
Jackie's been asleep for 90 minutes anyways, like she's.
But I know it's been a late night, I know there's, so thank you,
The
really.
lights are on, but nobody's home, I'm just saying.
That's all I can say.
So you need a
Okay,
motion
look
to
for a
go.
motion to go to closed.
Motion's oh, you wanna do it, 'cause
No,
you got it, you got it memorized.
I almost, no.
Hey, do it, Steve.
Motion to temporarily recess the city council meeting to convene in closed session for purposes to discuss pending or reasonable imminent litigation and the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property as provided by Utah Code annotated section 52-4-205.
Motion by Steve,
Second.
second by Teddy. Steve,
Yes.
Sherry, Teddy.
Yes.
I'll vote yes, we can go to closed. Thank you, everyone.
I got most of it, I just don't know if we're doing all of the things